Hi, class. Welcome to today's session. So greetings to you, morning, uh, evening, afternoon, depending on how when you are getting access to this recording. Um, I hope that we have all the tools necessary to make this session visually appealing to you, and so I will definitely try my best uh, uh, to make it real, to keep it real. And for today's class, I'll just keep bit of what I've done in the other sessions. But still, if you are joining, just unmute yourself, say hi, and hoping to have your companionship during this class and interact with you. But for we would be accessing the recording, just try to make sure that you skip. I will always try to divide the session into more digestible parts so that you can watch it, within your time. Normally I do divide the whole session into 30-minute um, parts, and that makes it more digestible. So you would be able, for instance, to access 4 recordings for this particular session, or 2 recordings for this particular session. So let me just, for housekeeping, I hope all of you have already begun with assignment 1. If you have not started with assignment 1, you are really late. So you should actually have done a draft, and this is quite important, is that have a draft for assignment 1, where you have covered most of the questions by now. And if that has not yet been done, that means that you are late, and you should really do serious catch up. But I can understand if one has been busy reading the materials and therefore did not see it very necessary to start with the assignment, although I wouldn't advise that. But if you have been taking your time to really understand the material properly, then the questions for the assignment will be relatively simple. I've had a couple of questions during the week. They are very easy questions. The assignment is quite simple. And so any clarity that you would need, do not hesitate. But as per our notification communications that we've been having, you are well aware that next Wednesday, we will be doing our national session. So it's the national support session. It is a session that normally, if we have multiple classes across the country, we do cover everything at the same time, so that we are basically offering an equity in our education. So that's why we call it national. So don't be concerned much about the term. So it's the fact that, if there are multiple uh, um, classes across the country, we do everything at the same time. But we would have, for assignment 1, it won't be a long session. It will be a quite short session, because our assignment does not have many areas to clarify. But although the most important part is, is always the marks. So we also gonna make sure that we do a good appropriation, if I could say, or repetition of the marks, so that you know how many marks would would, would cover a particular of your answers. So that I hope will be quite clear. So although I would like to delve in already and jump in, but let me at least greet the people who have managed to make it. I can see Rabia is here, and Ashi. Just unmute yourself if you would like to say hi. I hope now you have a proper headset and you can actually speak.
Hi, sir.
Hi, Rabia. All right. Okay, so Rabia, it seems like Rabia is well prepared for the session. And the next person is Ashi. I'm not too sure. It's spelled with triple Y. I'm not too sure why. So if you're also able, you have a headset and you can say hi, just unmute yourself. Feel free to say hi. Obviously, you guys, if you are live, you will benefit more than anybody else because you can ask questions directly. Anything anything that we have, like I said, we have enough tools to really zoom in into everything we're going to be talking about. As you can see in the background, I have OneNote is there. I have the learning units that is there, is available, so you will be able basically to tell me this section, this on this and this page. I'm not understanding it. It's quite difficult for me to understand, and I will jump in. So you will benefit directly from the session. You see, I'm not going to do a lecture. I'm not going to be covering everything, but obviously, since we are doing a financial module, as you know, the most important part will always be the formulas, will always be the understanding behind some of the calculations. So I would really want, if you can get anything from this session, that will be what you are getting from this session. So that's about my 5 minutes for housekeeping. It's just, hey, please make sure if you've not started assignment one, you are late, make sure that you start. And you should also, even at this time, have started also with assignment two, because remember, assignment one does cover learning unit. Assignment one covers learning unit 1 to 3. I think if I'm correct, yeah. And assignment 2 will cover learning unit um, 1 to 5. So we are covering today learning unit 4. So as you can see, we have only one learning unit to go for you to to be sorted for your 2 assignments. So like as I did clarify or advise last time, is that every time you are going through a particular unit, please just read the questions of both assignments. Even if you do not understand them, just read them. And every time, for instance, you are covering a learning unit, just read. If you are covering learning unit 1, always have a look at question 1. Just try to see if question 1 is touching learning unit 1, so that while you are reading the learning unit, you will also begin to answer the question 1 or any question that is covered by a particular learning unit. So I hope this advice is followed. This will be the best way for you to get a distinction in the module. If you are not keeping yourself, remember again, tertiary level student, you are not a secondary level student. So this should be clear by now. So enough of housekeeping. We're just going to jump in. Let me just ask for the people who are here, if you have a question, either just raise your hand. You have that beautiful tool there that can allow you to raise your hand. And this fantastic tool, OneNote, also a tool that should help you also to do your work. So if you are able, for instance, you can take a picture of a particular section that you are not understanding. You can you have your name. You will find your name you won't see these. I see these names, but you're not going to see the names of your colleagues. I can see them. I can see whoever is here. So if anybody has a question and would like maybe me to look at it, or a particular problem, a particular question belonging to the test bank, sorry, or any other questions that you might come up with, and you have it in writing and it's difficult for you to email it, this is the tool that will allow us to collaborate even more interactively. So you could always send me an email and say, hey, I have something that I've left for you, and um, please go ahead and assist me. So all that's clear. So that section is gone, as simple as that. So let's begin. Today we're starting with introduction to managerial accounting, quite an important one. And what you will find out is that basically, and as which is quite important when you are dealing with a financial module, is that proper definitions of terms needs to be made, and that's why I would like you to read, although one can define it, but I would like also you to read, and in your own notes, sometimes to even write your own definition of what you're seeing, because that will help you, especially when it's going to come exam time and you are doing your revision. And as you know, your exam will be a written exam. So, you know, be ready, because if you've not been keeping notes, I do not see how you are going to revise efficiently. And that's why the whole purpose of bringing in even OneNote, using it even more efficiently, and allowing you as a student to use this tool for your benefit. This is, as a tutor, a tutor is not really only sticking to the lecturing part. A tutor is even goes beyond that, teach you even strategies on how to make yourself ready for the exam. So I hope that all this will benefit you. Feel free, if you have a better method of working, feel free to carry on with the method that you have. But yeah, like we said, it's an introduction. So we're gonna touch on some costs. So the costing, for instance, of your products. Yes, as you can see, we have these two division between what is a production cost or a manufacturing cost and a non-manufacturing cost. And as you can see, everything that is administrative, selling, marketing, distribution will be separate from the actual making of the product. So the course would like you to understand the difference between these two. So you have your production. In fact, sometimes we use the X for production, but you are welcome to use whatever symbol, but for your production or manufacturing. And then we will have also non-manufacturing. Again, if you have any question, just either write it down or just raise your hand. Okay, so for your production, as usual, you're going to have the direct cost and you're going to have also your indirect cost. And as it says quite simply, is that the direct cost is directly traceable to a cost object. It is as simple as that. And an indirect cost cannot be traced directly to a specific object. Let's say maybe we are building, a silly example, sorry. We are building toilet paper. So when we we're manufacturing, not building, but we're manufacturing toilet paper. We would be building maybe a plane or any other thing, but we are manufacturing, we are producing toilet papers. So one thing to understand is that your direct cost will be directly traceable. So we can trace that cost to the actual toilet paper, the item itself that we are making. And an indirect cost, we will not be able to trace, obviously. And it is also um, important to realize that these two here, the direct material and direct labor, only the two of them has the word direct, which stand for traceable. It is traceable to the actual item. So even the labor, and there is quite a word for the labor, which is uh, the touch. There is a term for it. It's every person who is working and who's gonna touch the actual item. So that's how specific we get in finance when we are tracing this. And as you can see, I think if you go to the introduction, there is quite an easy definition of the the management accounting itself, as opposed to the financial accounting. There is a difference between management accounting and financial accounting. I think you can already see, even by the name itself, that management accounting will address more the managers, and the financial accounting will be more addressing external people. It could also be used internally or externally, but the focus is more external, and the management accounting is more internal. So I hope that that is clear. It's quite, yeah, and that's the beauty of finance, is that these terms we can make a clear distinction, sorry. And even in your assignment, you have questions like that where you are asked to make the difference between two things, and that's where your notes are quite important. And so when we're talking about overhead, anytime that you hear overhead, we are talking about that indirect cost. So the direct labor, like I said, is directly involved in the manufacturing process. So that's something that you need to understand. It's directly involved in the manufacturing process, and that's why it's even called the touch labor, because there needs to be a person touching the item and contributing either in the building of the product that is being manufactured or created. There needs to be a touch, and that's why that's quite important. All right, so on the overhead, of course, you will have indirect labor, indirect material, the rent paid. This is quite a good, I love when they give you these kind of things, where you can clearly see that the rent, but obviously which rent are we talking about? And this is what you need to understand as you read. Which rent? Is it the rental for the admin building, or is it the rental for the actual plant, or the warehouse, or the manufacturing plant? So you need to make a clear distinction between these two. So you have the rent that is paid, but remember again, these are three. Let me just summarize them here. We have, for manufacturing, we have the direct cost, the direct material, sorry, direct material, direct labor, and we have the overhead. All right. So these are the three. But remember again, what are we talking about? We are talking about manufacturing. We are not talking about administration. We are not talking, and that's why whatever overhead or indirect cost, whatever overhead or indirect cost needs to speak to the manufacturing process. So if we are talking, for instance, down here about rent, we are talking about the rent not of the administrative building, but of the factory itself. So these are the clear differences that you need to make. And a rent, for instance, will be called a fixed cost, but we will touch on that. All right. So, and then we have non-production or non-manufacturing, and that's why we mentioned those two. We have the administration side, because any business needs to have an administration side. And as I'm speaking, I'm always reminded that I'm speaking to future entrepreneurs. So Rabia, Ashi, you're going to be future entrepreneurs. You need to understand that there is the manufacturing side or the production side of my business, but I need to have the admin side, because there needs to be a proper administration for me to succeed. And then there's also the marketing or distribution or selling. So as to this learning unit, you have these two as non-production, non-manufacturing cost. So the administrative costs will have to do with anybody who is dealing with the general management of the organization. So that will be the general management of the organization. And when you are talking about the marketing, the distribution, the selling, you know that whatever we have as product out there, it's always about order gating and order filling. Order gating and order filling. Very important. So that's what it's all about, is that we have a particular product, we need to receive orders, and we need to take the product and get it delivered into the hands of our customers or clients. So it is as simple as that. So you will have costs that include costs that you know, salaries, advertising, carriage, railage, freight, sales, traveling expenses, whatever that is. You as an entrepreneur needs to be able to understand these costs. So, and please go through it. It's read. I'm just touching quickly before we go to our sort of calculations. Okay, so um, okay, another two important distinctions that is always there, that you have the product cost and the period cost, and the product cost is attached to the units. So the manufacturing, for instance, the manufacturing cost is attached to the units. So that's why we call it the product. Product cost is attached to the actual product, to the actual good that is being manufactured. And so, can you say that the manufacturing cost is also a product cost? Yes, it is. But the fact that we mention really product is that that cost still remain attached to the particular product. Remember here we have our good old toilet paper, yeah, right? So it's the cost, the product cost is still attached to this particular item until it is completed, until the order, the finished inventory has gone on sale and it has been delivered. So it is quite true that it is more related to the inventory. The inventory. So the stock of items that we have. They have manufactured the product. We have stock of product. We have an inventory, and that product cost, the product cost is still attached to that as that product is awaiting sale. And a period cost is different, and that's why a product cost normally, for instance, if we have an item, the cost is still attached to this item until it is sold. Let's say maybe we manufacture this one in 2011, but it was sold in 2012. The product cost will be taken into account in 2012 because it was still an inventory until it was sold. So how am I doing? I always say that I need to take a break at a particular time and check on you guys. Is this understandable? Do you understand it? Rabia, Ashi, do you understand this? Just waiting on your feedback there. But as you understand, the product cost is still attached to the product until the product is sold. Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Rabia. So until the product is sold, this product cost is still attached. And this is different from a period cost. A period cost will not be attached to the product until the product is sold. It's if it was spent in 2011, it will still be accounted for in 2011 because it's specific to a period. That's why it is called a period. It is attached to a specific period, but a product cost is not attached to a specific period. It attached to the product. So if the product as an inventory is only sold in 2012, then we will take it into account only in 2012. So I trust that that is quite clear. And there's quite a good subdivision here. So the summary of the cost. So we have the direct cost and we have the indirect cost. The direct costs are directly traceable to the cost object, and the indirect cost is not directly traceable to the cost object. So we have the direct material and the direct labor and the manufacturing overhead or indirect cost. Awesome. Right, so let me wrap up again here. So we have the non-manufacturing cost, then the non-manufacturing cost will be divided into the administrative cost. So these are the general management of the business. So and the marketing and the selling costs are all the costs that are necessary to secure customers' orders and get finished product or services into